Simcha, celebration, Simcha, Simcha, celebration of life.
Hello, welcome to Simcha, a celebration of life. I'm Nikki Wallman. The Jewish Museum in Prague is one of the largest of its kind in Europe and has one of the most extensive collections of Judaic art in the world. Forming part of the museum is the Spanish Synagogue, built in 1868. Under Nazi and then communist rule, the synagogue fell into a state of disrepair and was closed for over 20 years. But in the latter part of the 20th century, the museum took over the building and began one of its most ambitious projects, the restoration of the synagogue.
The Spanish synagogue was built in 1868 on the site of the old New Shul, the oldest synagogue of the Jewish town. As the interior was decorated in a Moorish style, the building came to be known as the Spanish Synagogue.
The Moorish style is very kosher for Jews, and usually in Islam the decorations, as we know from old mosques, Spain and others, is letters, beautiful calligraphy, and all kinds of symbols. And they also had the pride of some of them here in Prague and in other places in the world of the grand old days of the Spanish Jewry. Therefore, many of the synagogues that were built at that time all over the world were in that style.
The synagogue has a central square plan with a large dome surmounting its central space and built-in lightened galleries on three sides that fully open onto the main hall. The remarkable interior decoration was executed between 1882 and 1883. It consists of a low stucco arabesque of stylized Islamic motifs derived from the Spanish Alhambre. The same richly gilt and polychrome ornamental features were applied to the carved decorations of the doors, the organ, gallery banisters, and wall cladding on the ground floor. The ground floor and upper floor windows were fitted with stained glass.
In the windows, the display in the windows, all the history of the Jews since the emancipation by Joseph II, the son of Maria Theresia, the empress, who gave the first rights to the Jews in the end of the 1700s.
Despite its name, the synagogue was never used by a Spanish or Sephardic congregation. It was in fact an early Reform temple.
The Jewry in Prague is minimum 1,000 years. We have written documents from 900s about Jewish community in Prague. And here was a place which was called the school. Shul and school are very close to each other. When the Jews came here as merchants from all over the place, from the west, from Germany, and from other places, or from the east, from the Byzantine part, and they met here as merchants. They didn't come for 3 days for holidays. They came usually for a few months, and sometimes they had to settle. Sometimes they had to buy a place to bury their dead. But when they came with their caravans, they came with their 2 or 3 wives, they came with a teacher to the kids, they came with the Torah. I believe they even spoke between themselves. The only language which they could speak was Hebrew, because they were Jews from Byzantine and Jews from the West. And then they developed the beginning of the community. Through these things, we can already imagine to ourselves how rich in culture the Jews were here, how rich in Torah, and how rich sometimes even in the possibilities to donate and to build such beautiful synagogue and donate to the synagogue so beautiful artifacts.
The Spanish synagogue was used for religious services until September 1941 and was then turned into a Nazi warehouse for confiscated Jewish property.
The second floor of the synagogue, there is a display of the silver treasures, which mainly collected by the Nazis of cursed memory, Ymach Shemam, which was Hitler's and his helpers' idea to make Prague a museum of the race, the religion, the people that he is going now to eliminate.
Today, this magnificent building forms part of the Jewish Museum of Prague and is used as a museum and concert hall.
As stressed in traditional Jewish writings, the core of all religious practice and the principle underlying all divine worship is faith. About 850 years ago, Maimonides, arguably the greatest authority on Jewish law and Torah thought, compiled a list of 13 Jewish principles of faith. Today, Chief Rabbi Warren Goldstein explains to us just what these 13 principles of faith are all about.
People often ask me, what is Judaism? I'm asked that question so often. I go all over to different people, whether it's within the community or outside of the community, to the wide open South African society. What is Judaism? What is it? And often people are confused because so much of what Judaism is our 613 commandments. And there's no doubt that to be a Jew is to be a Jew in action. There's so many commandments that we have to fulfill in so many areas of life. But what is often neglected is the ideological, philosophical framework of Judaism. There are certain things that we have to believe that are minimum definition of what Judaism is. So if you say, what is Judaism? One short answer could be, it's contained and explained in the 13 principles of faith. I'm sure you've heard that expression, the 13 principles of faith. What you're probably even more familiar with is the Yigdal prayer. Every Friday night in Shul, we sing the Yigdal. What is the Yigdal? Next time you're in Shul on Friday night, this coming Friday night, have a look at the translation of the Yigdal prayer, and you will find over there the 13 principles of faith articulated. It's a translation, it's done in poetic form, so it's not stated clearly as clear words, but it's there, and you can find it in the poetic form. If you're looking for it in a clearer format, you'll find it was originally written down by the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, 1,000 years ago. He's often known as Maimonides. He was one of our great sages of the Middle Ages. He, of course, was not inventing it. He was articulating it and summarizing it from the Talmud, where the Talmud in Tractate Sanhedrin sets out what are the minimum beliefs to talk about the definition of Judaism. In other words, Judaism believes this, or to be a believing Jew means to believe in the 13 principles of faith. They are the foundations of what Judaism is all about, these basic principles. So on the one hand, Judaism, of course, is a way of life. It's about action, it's about charity, it's about Shabbos, it's about kashrut, it's about how to treat your fellow human beings. So there are so many mitzvahs that are associated with it, actions, commandments. On the other hand, there is a framework of beliefs that form the basic way of thinking about the world. Because to be a good Jew is not just about what you do, it's how you think. It's about action on the one hand, but about thinking and mindset on the other hand. The 13 principles of faith set out the belief system of what it means to be a Jew. And in this series, we're going to be having a look at certain aspects of the 13 principles of faith because it's so important to discuss them. In fact, the Talmud says that minimum entrance into the world to come requires belief in these fundamental principles of faith. They form the framework of belief of everything that we do. And so often people don't know what they are even. I mean, how many people can list the 13 principles of faith? So here you have the foundation, the everything, the framework of what it means to be a Jew. And so often people don't even know what those basic belief principles are. And it relates to the fact that to be a human being, on the one hand, we are physical bodies that God has created us. On the other hand, we are mind and soul. And so there's a part of Judaism that relates to our bodies, and then there's a part of Judaism that relates to our mind and to our soul. And the 13 principles of faith are what we believe in our minds and in our souls. And these are the principles of faith that have accompanied Jews throughout the generations, from the beginning of the revelation at Mount Sinai until today. This is what binds us all together. The way that we think about the world, the philosophy of the world, how we see things, our relationship with God, our relationship with our fellow human being, with our fellow Jews, with our Torah, all of that is who we are and predicated upon certain fundamental principles of faith and ideology. So I look forward to discussing these with you in the weeks that lie ahead.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. Thank you so much for joining us, and please tune in again same time next week. And don't forget to find us on Facebook at Spirit Sister Productions Network. As always, from me, Nikki, and the team, shalom and have a safe and peaceful week.
Visit www.spiritsister.co.za to view previous episodes of Simcha, a celebration of life.